Hey you guys, my name is Amy from A Red Spatula. I am really excited that you're here with me today. Welcome to my kitchen. I have taught a lot of in-person cooking classes over the years, but this is going to be my first virtual class. So if you could just extend me a little bit of grace as I navigate this process of learning how to create video content, I would really appreciate it. I am a culinary school graduate, and I worked in the industry for quite a few years until my husband and I got married and we started having children. And while I loved that fast-paced and intense environment for working, it suits my personality really well, I didn't want to bring that energy home to my young kids. So I left the industry, and I always tell everyone that I cooked for a party of 4 during that period of time. I have been a food blogger. I created a food blog several years ago just as a way to, I had a lot of friends and family that were asking for recipes, and it seemed like a great way to make it accessible to them and easy for them. But like a lot of bloggers, this has turned into a full-time business for me now. And what you can expect from my blog and from my YouTube channel now is a moderated approach to incorporating whole grains into your everyday lives. I want to be the blog that's in between the person who only uses refined flours and the other person who uses 100% whole grains. I want to be that stepping stone. If you are new to whole grains and wondering how to use them in your everyday foods, how to bake with whole grain flours, you are in the right place, and I'm excited to show you what I have. So the first recipe that we are going to try are these incredible buttermilk biscuits. Now, I'm not sure if you have ever made a buttermilk biscuit before, but if not, I am going to show you how to create beautiful flaky layers. Just what a good biscuit should be. I am a northern girl. In fact, I was raised in Alaska, about as far north as you can go. But I married a man who was born in Texas, raised in Louisiana, and buttermilk biscuits are a part of everyday life. While buttermilk biscuits are not hard to make, there are a few things that you need to do to be able to create these beautiful flaky layers. This is what your biscuit should look like when it's done, and then you can just pull it right apart. I don't know if you can see that steam rising or not. We love these with breakfast or brunch or dinner, soups, salads, anything you can think of. We love these biscuits. These, again, are a partial wheat biscuit, and what that means is that they're made from part wheat and part refined flour. In this case, I used a white wheat, and then I used all-purpose flour. So let's go ahead and get into this, and let me show you exactly what you're going to need to make the perfect buttermilk biscuit. One of those things is that these layers are created when butter melts as soon as it hits the oven. You don't want the butter to be softened or melted before it hits the oven. So always keep your butter cold or frozen. I'm going to show you a way to make this with frozen butter. And then another thing is to make sure you have all of your ingredients in place before you get started, and make sure that your oven is preheated. These 2 simple things are going to help ensure that your biscuits turn out just like you want them to. And let me just show you what this looks like. So we're going to open this up. Perfectly flaky. And then 2, if you grab part of it, it just breaks apart. That is from the layer, or that butter melting in between the layers. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is we mix together all of our dry ingredients. They go into a bowl. There's our all-purpose flour, whole wheat flour, baking powder, and salt. Just 4 dry ingredients. And then with a fork, there's no fancy equipment needed here. You're just going to mix it all together. You want to make sure that the baking powder is well incorporated, as is the salt. And then you're going to set this aside. Next up is your butter. I used frozen butter for this. Unwrap it, and then I just used a hand box grater, and you can see that I used the larger setting on it. And you're just going to start grating the butter. I know that it's kind of a gross feeling. Your fingers are going to get greasy, and just be careful too. I've grated my fingers a few times. Here I am down at the very end. Just be kind of gentle so you don't grate your little knuckles or your fingers. And when you get down to this last little bit, I just kind of break it apart, set it aside, and your grated butter is ready to go. Now what we're going to do is we're going to mix this into our dry ingredient mixture. It goes right into the bowl. And again, I know this is going to feel gross on your fingers, so have paper towels or a dish towel nearby to clean it off. And then again, we're just going to use that same fork and we're going to incorporate all that butter into the dry ingredients. This will take just a minute, and because it's grated, you don't really have to break it up or anything like that. And then you're going to add in your buttermilk. And again, we just mix it with a fork until it's incorporated pretty well. You don't want to over mix it at this point. And then we're going to turn this mixture out onto our surface, and you're just going to give it a really quick, very gentle knead. We want to avoid contact with our warm hands because we don't want that butter to melt. And so I just turned it over just a couple times, and then we're going to go ahead and cut it. So I sprinkle the first I need to fold it. Sprinkle the countertop with your flour just to keep it from sticking. Not very much, you don't want your dough to dry out. And then I use a tri-fold. So you fold over one side and then the other. This is also going to help create those beautiful layers. The butter does that too, but this tri-fold that I use does it as well. And then we're going to go ahead and cut out the biscuits. I've always loved round biscuits for some reason, but of course you can always cut out just square biscuits or rectangular biscuits or whatever shape you want, really. So you can see once we get to the end, some people will just throw away their biscuit dough. I hate to do that because I hate to waste. Quickly fold it back together. You don't want to over mix it for sure, and then just go ahead and cut out a few more. These are not going to be the prettiest biscuits for sure. In fact, they bake up kind of wonky, but they taste just as good as those other biscuits. Go ahead and put them onto your baking sheet. I like to use parchment just for ease when you're baking and taking them off, and move these right to your preheated oven. And here they are about 15 minutes later. They're completely done. You can see those beautiful biscuits that I cut out first, and then here's one of the ugly ones. I know it doesn't look as pretty, but it tastes exactly the same, and there's no food waste. Again, we have the beautiful, perfect layers that we were looking for, so you can break it apart. And again. All right, you guys, so hopefully I gave you all the tools that you are going to need to create the perfect biscuit. If you have any questions, of course, drop them down in the comment section. I'll put the whole recipe and everything else that you're going to need down there. Until next time, happy baking.